Welcome to JXT Spotlight. We started this channel and the podcast, especially looking at, as Janashakti Group is looking at breaking barriers and forging futures, we wanted to impart financial literacy, financial knowledge to our society, and also inculcate good habits in leadership and also talk about social good. So, today's episode, we wanted to focus about the payment side of it in the Sri Lankan economy. And especially with regard to the evolving digital landscape, I think this topic will be very, very interesting. To talk about this topic, I have invited a very special guest who has over 2 decades of experience in banking, financial, and especially on the payment side of it. He also comes with a technical background. And I have a superstar in house today. Mr. Sandun Hapugoda, Country Manager, Sri Lanka and Maldives for Mastercard. Sandun, welcome to JXC Spotlight, and the spotlight is on you.
Thank you very much, Kamika, for having me. Lovely to be here.
Thank you, Sandun. Thank you for accepting our invitation, because I know that your schedule is absolutely packed, but managed to squeeze in this time to pick your brain and to inspire our listeners as well. So to start our conversation with, the landscape of payments is evolving, and hats off to Mastercard for doing a wonderful role and taking leadership in that. Tell us a bit about, we've been talking about debit cards and credit cards over years. Now I think it has evolved more. Can you tell about the current landscape and educate our followers? Where do we stand as Sri Lanka in the payment side of it?
Yeah, Gamika, I think if we speak about the debit cards and credit cards in Sri Lanka, debit cards and credit cards actually started in 1989 in Sri Lanka, and actually Mastercard is the first payment network to come to Sri Lanka and launch it. But predominantly, if you look at the last previous 2 decades, the credit cards are dominating as a payment instrument. And typically, debit cards are known as ATM cards, where people use it to go to ATM and withdraw money. But if you look at the last 5 years, the tables have turned. Today, debit card is the clear winner, and debit is giving a good run to credit actually in terms of the spend. And just to give you the landscape, we have about 20 million debit cards today. For a population of 20 million, 21 million, adult population of voters of 17 million something. So which means it's a heavily carded market. And we assume that the bank population is also 90% in Sri Lanka almost.
So just to interrupt, this 20 million is unique users or?
No, so the unique cards doesn't
okay.
mean that everybody has a payment instrument, but we have 20 million cards in circulation today, active. However, on the credit side, we only have about 2 million cards in the market. In my estimation is we would have about 1.1 million credit card users in Sri Lanka, but the debit card users would not be like 20 million. The challenge that we have, even though we have a large number of debit cards, is that the active ratio of debit cards for the payments is about 30% today. In terms of the volume of transactions, again, debit has taken over credit in terms of number of transactions in 2014. It took almost about 8 years for debit to take over credit cards in terms of the value. So now debit cards do more transactions in terms of the value than credit cards in Sri Lanka. Like in rupee value, credit does about 850 billion rupees a year versus credit is about 550 billion rupees. Now, again, talking about the landscape, the potential in Sri Lanka, and if my money is on something, that will be on debit, because the possibility to activate debit cards, as I said, if the active ratio is 30%, there's, with less effort, you can get people to activate their cards. Because today what people do is they go to ATM, withdraw money, take that money, go to
supermarket and pay.
Go to supermarket and pay, or walk into Janashakti and pay your insurance in cash. Whereas we could have walked into Janashakti and given your card to make a payment, debit card, right? So the potential to activate is immense. Just to give you funny statistics, average debit card is only used about 10 to 12 times a year.
Really? Okay.
And we do much more transactions than
Than
10
that.
to 12 times
Very much,
a
yeah.
year, right? So there's a huge potential, and I think all of us in the industry, payments industry, and different other industries like yours,
Yeah.
has that responsibility to educate the customer to move into digital payments,
Yeah.
and eradicate cash as much as possible, which is like a huge problem for the country anyways, and activate debit.
Yeah.
On the credit front, if I may take a minute to explain, I think I have this feeling that we would have kind of exhausted some of the consumer side of the business on credit. So I think the next phase of credit card growth would come from SME and MSMEs,
Right.
because access to credit for SMEs and MSMEs is something that even government is keen to expand.
Enable. Yeah. Yeah.
And that is where I think the credit card growth would come from in next couple of years.
Interesting.
Is my prediction.
Very interesting. Sandun, I think, you touched on some interesting data points. My experience in the banking sector also, people are hesitant to, you rightly elaborated, people will go to the ATM, withdraw 1,500 rupees, go to the next shop and pay out of cash.
Yeah.
We've been also trying to educate customers, why don't you just take the card and pay at the supermarket, and you can pay it to the cent.
Yeah.
Why do you think that this mental barrier in there in Sri Lanka? Have you seen this phenomena in other countries as well?
Yeah, so it's different countries. I believe it's a
Cycle?
cycle, and different countries are at different stages of this whole cycle. Okay, and we are actually at that verge of change in the whole user behavior. Because I gave you a funny statistics of payment cards, debit cards doing 12 transactions a year, but if you look at 4 years ago, debit cards did only 6 transactions a year.
Wow,
So it technically has doubled during last 3 years.
Yeah.
We see the consumer behavior changing in Sri Lanka. But if you are used to cash, see, other problem in Sri Lanka is we don't have a push for people to move from cash to digital. And if you look at other countries, Gamika, like in Africa, there was less access to banks.
Yeah.
So M-Pesa came
M-Pesa,
up,
yeah.
and then the whole digitization happened. India demonetization came up,
Overnight,
no reason,
yeah.
overnight moved to digital, and today like people are rejecting cash.
Yeah. You buy a samosa on the street that you'll pay off your phone, right?
You can't pay with
you
cash.
can't pay cash, yeah.
They'll say pay with any digital
Yeah.
mean. And even in Bangladesh, for that matter, again the problem was less access to banks, so Bcash took off. Sri Lanka, we don't have a problem because wherever you go, you have an ATM. Go to a rural area, you have an ATM.
Absolutely.
ATM withdrawals are sometimes waived off. So if you are used to cash, you have no reason to move. I'm not saying that we should create problems, because I think as Sri Lankans we all have enough problems. but I think we have to have different smart ways to move people from cash to digital, which I will probably explain a little later.
Yeah. Sandun, I was also part of this working committee with the central bank of popularizing digital payments in Sri Lanka while we were in the bank. I know for a fact that the cost of cash handling, cash printing, management, all that is huge and huge burden. How far are we off in demonetization? I know you mentioned saying that we don't need another problem because we are moving smoothly. How far away are we?
I was also part of some of the committees. In fact, there was a couple of subcommittees previously, and I was co-chairing the Digital Financial Services Committee as well. See, Gamika, the policy and the approaches, we knew what we have to do. At least from 2013, we had a policy document and the approach document. Just the execution was the challenge in Sri Lanka, right? And some of the action items were the same, irrespective of which government comes to power. We just changed the cover page color and had the same action. But at least now, positively, if you look at, we have a Ministry of Digital Economy, which is like a very good sign.
Yeah.
There is an initiative to look at this as a very focused manner, and there's a whole team working on that. Dr. Hans and other team, a lot of other people have come on board pro bono, which is like a very positive thing.
Yeah.
but we need to get this executed as well. And
Yeah.
some of the initiatives that we are doing, including digital ID and some of the initiatives that we do on um, uh, moving people from cash to digital has to be executed rather than
Absolutely.
talking around it for a prolonged time.
Absolutely. So, digital ID, I'll come to that question.
Yeah.
I want to go into Mastercard on this side. I think many of us, until you told me and I got educated, we associate Mastercard with a card. But my understanding, Mastercard is not in the card business, but it's a bigger story. Would you like to educate our followers on that one?
Yeah, so the moment that you say Mastercard, because I think our name also
Name
carries
also
the
say-
name
yeah.
card, people think we are a cards company.
Yeah.
I mean, we do specialize on payment cards as well, but we are a technology company, Gamika. That's how we've listed even, even in Sri Lanka. We have a significant revenue of Mastercard coming out of the cards business. So we do a lot of things around digital, digitization, cybersecurity. We do advisory services, and some of the customers that we have has nothing to do with payments, especially on the advisory and the cybersecurity front.
Right.
So we do so many other things than the cards business as a technology company.
So you enable the ecosystem in a larger way, if I put it in other words.
Yeah, so enabling systems, creating platforms for other people to build on top of that, and become an enabler for the digitization of the economy is I think one of our key priorities, Gamika.
Sandun, I'll dive into the digital ID side. We had an episode with our CIO, Mr. Kuganathan, who is also part of the discussion in terms of enabling these systems. He touched on the digital economy. How does the digital ID enable? In your point of view, and I know that in the background you've been doing a lot of work on this area. How do you see the trend changing, and what are the benefits that Sri Lanka as a whole will get by enabling digital ID and connecting into digital payments?
Yeah, so I was actually thinking about it even last evening. If you really think about it, how our digital payment infrastructure evolved, or the digital infrastructure evolved. So we have I mean, just to take a step back, we have a very unique situation in Sri Lanka, Gamika. I think my argument is we have a very good, decent digital infrastructure, because we have like 150% plus mobile penetration, 60 plus internet penetration.
Yeah.
They say we have about 9 million social media users, out of which 99% of them are using mobile phone to access social media, which I call them mobile app savvy community.
Yeah.
All that, right? So people are okay, infrastructure is okay. But if you look at digital payments is still around 5 to 6% of the digital economy, right? Now to shift this, we need to do the next level of the infrastructure changes.
Okay.
Now, Sri Lanka, if you look at the infrastructure-wise, before I come into the digital ID, your question, infrastructure-wise, we are one of the first countries to launch ID in the first place.
Yeah.
Long time ago, and then we were one of the first countries to have online automated check clearing. We were one of the first countries to implement account transfers. But when we did that, I think infrastructure-wise, on the payment enabling side, we got stuck after we enabled online real-time fund transfers. Because to push from that particular point, I would say the last thing came up was, I mean, after SEFT, was Just Pay.
Yeah.
And after Just Pay, for anybody in the ecosystem, be it Mastercard, be it Lanka Pay, or be it anybody else, to push the payments ecosystem, you need to have one key enabler, and my belief, that's digital ID.
Right.
Now, bringing in digital ID would enable a couple of things. First one, it will streamline the whole onboarding process.
Right.
So, irrespective what application you're using, you should be able to onboard to that application by using digital ID. Now, a lot of people think digitization of NIC is the digital ID, which is...
That's a misconception.
It's a misconception.
Yeah.
Digital ID, one of the key component of the digital ID is the digital authentication of citizens also.
Yeah.
So, just digitizing your identity doesn't suffice.
Yeah.
You need to authenticate also by using digital
That
means.
this is the person, this is the profile, and it entire thing being identified as a person in the cyberspace.
Yeah, so
right?
you digitize the individual
Yeah.
and you digitalize the process of authentication.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So you can authenticate the person which has a digital identity by using the digital mean, and combine is the digital ID.
Okay.
Okay. So once you have that process, one is you can onboard people seamlessly. By doing that, what you would do is you will enable a whole lot of new ecosystem players to come into the whole fintech ball game, and
Right.
enabling the digital ecosystem for a broader spectrum of participants. Now, when you do the digital ID, you can open up things like, let's say, open banking.
Yeah.
Now, once you have open banking, even let's say Janashakti has a super app,
Yeah.
you
can
should
connect.
you should be able to connect to all the financial services and even do lending through your mobile application as a merchant app or a super app. You should be able to make any payments through your super app by leveraging any of the funding sources. So my point is, you enable a whole new set of use cases and stakeholders to participate in the entire digital financial services. And by doing that, I think we should be able to push this to a further extent.
Fantastic. I think that's something that we'll all envisage in terms of happening, and from an economic point of view, that we will prosper as well.
Yeah.
One of the fundamental barriers in the market right now we face on a daily basis, although the central bank governor has explicitly said it, the acceptance of digital payments. That's one side. I'll come to the second question later on. The merchant side of it, there seems to be some resistance in terms of, I'm not saying everyone, but there is some resistance. Do you see that changing, or is there anything being done in the market for this acceptance level?
There are many initiatives tried in the market, tested, failed, working well, and all that. So I'll probably touch upon a couple of things. See, as a country, I think it's super important that we have to identify the right use cases that will fit to the country. Now, like as an example, China, if you look at China, QR is working really well because people, they have been using QR, and that's a form factor people are used to. So it's working really well. We've launched QR in Sri Lanka, Lanka QR.
Yeah.
We've launched that couple of years ago, about at least 5 years now. We have about 450,000 QR codes that does about 250,000 transactions a quarter.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And every QR code to deploy, there's a cost. Let's say 3,500 rupees.
Yeah.
Because you have to go there. It doesn't magically
automatically
appear
happen.
at the merchant, right?
Absolutely.
So you have to go there, deploy it. It could be a simple sticker, but you deploy it, train the merchant, there's a cost to that.
Yeah.
Now imagine, let's say 3,500 to just to
Enable,
average number into 450,000. You spend a lot of money
Substantial cost,
just to expand this. So number one is identifying right use cases.
Right.
So I'm so glad that we've been trying to expand QR in the toll gates, in the highways. For the longest time, and now we've enabled payment cards. Now payment cards are doing better. Right. So we have to identify the right uses.
Right.
Just to give you how the form factors could be different. Like in Sri Lanka, also we spoke about debit cards. So e-commerce and the contactless usage in Sri Lanka has been phenomenal during the last 3 years. Now, just to give you a little bit of statistics there, Gamika, about a couple of years back, let's say 5 years back, our e-commerce contribution was about 19%. Today, we've reached about 40%.
Okay.
E-commerce.
Right.
Now, out of that e-commerce transactions, if you look at the number of transactions, about 85-87% of the transactions are happening through the debit cards.
Right.
So that means your low-value transactions, you're using your debit card everyday account to be utilized to make payments.
Right.
Same with contactless transactions also. Again, contactless transactions about 3 years back used to contribute to about 17% of the entire pie of transactions.
Right. Okay.
3 years later, this quarter, first quarter, our statistics says it has grown from 17% to 54%.
Wow, that's a phenomenal.
54% of transactions are
Through
contactless
contactless.
transactions. That means the consumer behavior is
It's
changing.
changing.
So we have to identify the right consumer behavior. Now, to come back to your question in terms of expanding the infrastructure, we have to expand the infrastructure in line with the consumer behavior change.
Okay.
So now there is a significant move to introduce the low-cost acceptance machines
Okay.
for the card-based payments. Now, two of them we are also working with couple of players in the industry. Two of them are we have this really nice solution now called SoftPOS.
Okay.
If you have an Android phone,
Right.
let's say you're a tuk-tuk driver,
Okay.
and if nobody's giving you a POS machine because you might not generate enough volumes,
Yeah.
because there's a fixed cost to
Cost to that, yeah.
you can actually subscribe to one of these services and
Okay.
download the application and convert your Android phone
Into a POS.
into a contactless terminal.
Oh,
So that's
fantastic.
called SoftPOS.
Right.
And many players in the market, including some of the banks, are offering this solution now.
Fantastic.
The second solution that we are currently working is something also very interesting called Soundbox.
Okay.
So it has a small display,
Right.
but it also has something like a calculator at the back end.
Right.
It's a very low cost device where a merchant will enter the amount and it will display both the option of making the payment through a QR or by tapping a
Tapping
card.
the card. Okay.
Now, that will give the consumer to decide whether I need to make a payment through a Lanka QR or whether I need to tap a card and make a payment.
Right.
But the device is super low cost. Now,
think-
that will enable acquirers, SoftPOS and Soundbox and these kind of low cost solutions to expand this merchant
Yeah.
ecosystem.
Yeah.
Now, today we have about 150,000 POS terminals in the country. And I expect by end of this year or by mid next year to have about another addition of about 50,000 new terminals on the low cost side.
Okay. Okay.
Now that's about 33% growth of the
Absolutely.
terminals, and that's a significant growth in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Are we doing enough? I don't think so, because we have, I think, about 1 million registered SMEs, MSMEs in the country.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of potential for us to grow the low cost acceptance in the market.
Absolutely. Sandun, a little bit of a sensitive area on the MDR, the rate that the merchant has to pay. Is this a barrier? Is this, has this been decoded properly by the merchants, or are the banks enabling, or is there any way that this can be an enabler as well? I mean, I feel personally as a consumer that this is a stumbling block.
Yeah, so we have to look at it in a very objective and positive way. Why merchants are not accepting payments because of the MDR, or whether they're trying to pass the MDR to the consumer. Anyway, I think central bank is also being very vocal about this.
Yeah.
You can't pass the MDR to the
consumer.
The MDR is for the merchant. That's why it's called merchant discount rate,
Yeah.
MDR. Merchants also should understand why the digital payments, there is a MDR. First of all, there is a bit of a misconception that, Mastercard
takes
it. No, it's not the case. Actually, the majority of the merchant discount rate goes from the acquiring bank to the issuing bank. So that's how the transaction happens. However, there has to be a cost of the transaction.
Yeah.
Because there are enablers to the transaction.
Absolutely.
Acquiring bank, issuer, there could be a fintech application, POS supplier, card issue, all that. So these people have to be compensated, and somebody has to compensate.
Sure.
And current setup is the merchant compensates that. Now, can merchant compensate? Whether it's a better option than cash? Definitely yes.
Yes.
Because if you look at the cost of handling cash today,
Absolutely.
is way more than handling MDR for a digital transaction. Like in Sri Lanka, if you look at a normal business, cost of handling cash could be anything between 10 and 15%.
Absolutely.
So the moment that merchant understands this, they will push the consumers to
the digital
make
side.
digital payments instead of accepting cash. And I have a funny story, which I share many places. Like I was in India.
Right.
In the middle of the night, we kind of went out to buy some stuff. So in Delhi, there was this very small shop. These small shops that they have. Everything is there, and one person is inside where you can turn. So we bought some stuff, and I said, "How do I pay?" They said, "Pay with the QR."
Right.
So I said, I don't have a QR because I'm not an Indian citizen.
Right.
I can't register to make a payment through UPI. So can I give you cash? He said, I don't accept cash. So then I gave my Mastercard.
Right.
He said, I don't accept Mastercard also. Then I told him there's no way other way I can play. So this guy from the small merchant,
Yeah.
he went to the next merchant, took his POS machine,
Oh, okay.
came to his shop and said, okay, pay with your card.
Wow, okay.
Now, he would have had another arrangement to transfer that money from that other merchant to him. But that made me thinking, he went all the way to accept the payment digitally instead of accepting cash, because he understands the benefit of accepting that. The other point is, the moment that merchants accept cash, digital payments, like a lot of merchants are sometimes, there are reasons like taxation and all that.
Yeah.
But the other side of accepting digital payments, the benefit to the merchant is the moment that you make your transactions visible to the bank, because access to finance is also a big problem to SMEs and MSMEs.
Absolutely.
Be it distributor financing, be it dealer financing, be it retailer financing, whatever. So one of the challenges that financial sector has is, when you go to a financial institution, they don't know your
history, your
history
back. Yeah,
transactions.
absolutely.
And there's no way that you can back
your
credit
creditworthiness.
for the creditworthiness.
Yeah.
But the moment that you have the flow coming through your digital payments and that hits your bank account, bank knows your flow.
Absolutely.
And then bank can do this something called flow-based lending.
Yeah.
So it could be something like a microfinance level where they kind of do a daily basis kind of credit, or it could be like a proper structured loan that they can. So it will also enable access to credit in a better way to the merchant. So looking at all broader picture, I think we have to put a lot of effort to educate the merchants to understand the benefits of accepting digital payments. I am not sure whether we are doing enough as an industry, but I think the industry players, government alone can't do this. Central bank alone can't do this. I think we all have to get together and go as a single voice and kind of educate them. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well said, Sandun. I think one of your interviews recently, I was listening, and you explained in terms of the cost of handling cash, the insurance, the transit, to all that stuff. So very well said. So I'll move into the consumer side a little bit. I know statistically during the COVID times when we were locked down at home, the digital payments suddenly skyrocketed, right? You had no option to pay other than pay by card. That also tapered down a little bit when things became normal. In the minds of the consumer, in the digital side of it, I know predominantly Sri Lankans have some fear about cybersecurity, or whether your card is compromised, and this is a real scenario that the Sri Lankan consumer will have. What is your view on that, and how would you advise the market to move forward from here?
So I think twofold, Gamika. As consumers and the institutions, what we have to do, and then as enablers, what do we have to do? Like for the enablers, now today, Gamika, in Sri Lanka, we have, whether we like it or not, we have 30 fintech applications, including some of the bank applications, mobile apps, to providing financial services for the Sri Lankan community, right? And whether this is 30 is less or more, I think we have to consolidate at one point. At one point, before we speak about financial services consolidation.
Sure.
My point is, I have come across some of the instances. Some of the fintech applications look at the security at the last stage of their journey. But I think as enablers, this term we use at Mastercard, it has to be a security by design. Okay. So the moment that you have initial thought process, the brainstorming of your financial services application, or it could be a super application, merchant application, the security expert has to be on your table. So security has to be from design. And also now there are enough tools in the world to make sure that you bring in security even without, troubling the customer much. We call it frictionless authentication of the customer. We have risk-based authentication, multiple other tools that we can use. That's a separate discussion that I can do altogether. But I think there are 3 levels that we have to look at as enablers when we enable security. A lot of people talk about the transaction security. Transaction security is the third component. Okay. But before that, how do you secure the consumer identity is super important. Okay. Because most of the recent leaks, we have seen the identity leaks, identity being compromised.
Oh, right. Okay.
Which is a huge issue. Then how do you secure the account? That's the second part. The moment that you secure the identity, the user himself or herself, then you secure the identity,
Right.
eradicating any possible access to the account. The moment that you do that, then you can look at the transaction security.
Right.
And we have enough tools in the market. Now we have things like even passive biometrics that's coming to play. Passive biometrics is where you typically authenticate by using active biometrics. That could be your facial, iris, voice, whatever.
Fingerprint too.
Whatever. But now you can bundle that with passive biometrics.
Okay.
So passive biometrics is where your digital behavior. So let's say you are using a mobile phone.
Right.
Your location, whether you're right-handed, left-handed, what is your angle, how hard you type, what are the mistakes that you do.
So you triangulate and...
With all that,
okay,
you can actually create a digital profile to the customer.
Right. Okay.
So even if you have like identical twins, you can't compromise because it's very likely their digital behavior could be different. Even their facial
could be same.
Could be same. So by bringing in these technologies, you can seamlessly authenticate the customer, even without them knowing that you are authenticating and validating the customer.
Brilliant.
So bringing in consumer convenience, but also ensuring security will help to build the trust for the consumer.
So does Mastercard get involved with merchants and corporates to enable this?
We have solutions in everything I just spoke about.
Brilliant. I think that's a good news to the corporate world as well, who are designing the super apps to acceptance.
Yes.
Sandun, I think it's an interesting topic. I can go on with questions. I have a list of questions, but I want to, interest of time, I want to wrap up. I want to pick your brain in terms of asking Sri Lanka. You're a very patriotic Sri Lankan, been working in the banking and the digital payment industry for a long time. How do you see Sri Lanka moving forward in the next 5 to 10 years, and what's your vision?
Yeah, so the next, I would say 5 to 10 years, Kamika, on the digital, I think we have to immediately start. And there are couple of things that we have to immediately address. We spoke about the digital ID.
Yeah.
I don't think we have room to delay this anymore. We have to immediately start the implementation because implementation itself might take some time.
Right.
So immediately has to start the implementation of digital ID. That's one. Number two, things like smart ways of moving customers from cash to digital. Can we digitize our transit systems? And this is a conversation we've been having, again, for more than 15 years in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
We've been trying to do multiple other things, but the entire world is now moving into open loop transit.
Yeah.
We, as I said at the beginning, we have 20 million debit cards and 2 million credit cards, which means everybody has a card in their hand. And by mandate, all cards are contactless enabled. And the world has moved into contactless, open loop contactless. Can we get people to pay for their daily bus fare, train fare, simply by tapping their card? And you can.
Yeah.
There's enough technology. It's just that we need to implement. And somebody has to take a decision to go ahead and implement. And countries, those who have implemented open loop transit, we have immediately seen a shift of about 23-25% of the digital economy.
Right, okay.
So it could be an immediate boost because why? If you are using your payment card to make a payment of the everyday travel, it's very likely you will pull in the same instrument to make a payment at the retail merchant also instead of taking cash. That's the second part. The other area, as I said, I think we have to significantly focus on the SME digitization. Not only the payments, but also the overall digitization of SMEs. How can we encourage SMEs to sell their products and services digitally by using social media and all that to reach out more markets, wider world. And by doing that, of course, you can bring in digital payments to accept their payments. Transactions.
Yeah.
I can keep on going on. I think some of the other things would be the modern technologies that world is moving into, including open banking. Super important that we have to have an initiative. Can we also look at things like central bank digital currencies because countries are very positively looking at it. So those things are very important. And last but not least, how government and other institutions, large institutions, can use AI and also database decision making to improve the productivity. By doing that, push whatever the outflow back to the digital economy. So these are some of the thoughts that I have. But as you said, we can't wait for 5 to 10 years. This has to be immediately executed.
Thank you, Sandun. Thank you for those thoughts. And, it's a very, very interesting conversation. And you enlighten me as well as our followers with regard to what is beyond a card in terms of this whole digital economy and, how the payments can be enabled. So thank you for taking your time off your busy schedule and joining us at JXG Spotlight. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
I wish you all the very best, you and the team. I think you guys are doing a great job out there. I continue to do so. I wish you all the very best,
And
Sandhu.
the same comes to you as well. You guys are doing fantastic job. All the best to you all as well.
Thank you, Sandhu.
Thank you so much.
So that's a wrap of our conversation with Mr. Sandun Hapugoda, country manager, Sri Lanka and Maldives for Mastercard. I think this conversation actually clicked certain things in my mind and tick certain boxes. World is moving at a faster pace. Digital is the way forward, and Sri Lanka can get connected to the world by using digital economy. I think we are in the verge of changing. It has to happen, as Sandun mentioned, it has to happen now, not in 5 years. We've been talking about it for a long time. Sri Lanka has a high internet penetration, high penetration of mobile phones, and we have the knowledge and know-how. And we have players like Mastercard who are enabling this, government authorities who has a vision and a policy that we can roll out. And it's the execution that matters finally, how we can break through this barrier. And Janashakti Group is all about breaking barriers and forging futures, and we want a financial inclusive market in Sri Lanka. And with that thought, signing off, Gamika De Silva for JXG Spotlight.